Welcome to the Uncrowned Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is about men's mental health and motivation and lifestyle and everything in between. Men ages from 13, 15, all the way up to I've had clients and guests all the way up to 60. I'm your host, JB Motivation 777 as my tag is, or Joe Buttice. And today we're continuing on with the project called The Mentor's Mentor. So I go through and I try to interview, question, talk to basically all the men that have helped mentor me, have an influence in my life in some sort of positive way, coming from someone that didn't exactly have a good male role model. I may offend my dad by saying that, but honestly, I don't care. He was a good man, he was a working man, but there's a lot more that goes into influencing all of our lives just by showing us the work ethic that we need. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's missing and could be of great value to a lot of guys that struggle with having a good role model, a good father figure. So I'm doing this project to hopefully put out some good messages, good ideologies, and maybe some good motivation. Show you that, you still got this despite maybe not having all the tools that you need in your tool belt. So today I got my own coach, the literal mentor's mentor, Mr. Greg Levato. Previous bodybuilder, now turned full-time coach, fellow Italian.
Yes, sir.
It's great. It's amazing. So we're going to go through a little bit of his history, how he got into this, why he got out of this, and kind of where he's hoping to take this, and kind of who helped him out through this long journey, I guess what we would call it. Yeah. So Greg, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Excited.
I know it's impossible to get you to sit down and actually have
it kind of feels good to sit down, though. I'm not going to lie. It feels good to sit down.
I think it's funny, though. Every time we talk, one, it's either quick in passing, hey, how you doing? Or we end up getting caught up in the front, and then we talk for the next hour, and I'm like, why aren't we recording some of this conversation?
It's all good conversation,
It is. So. It's good to finally sit down and be like, all right, this is what we plan to do. This is where we want to go with it. Because I know you're very business oriented. Correct. So I know that having seen that this is possible and seeing the outcome of this, I feel like that might get a couple gears turned in your head like, okay, all right, we can do something with this.
For sure. As soon as you asked me about it, and I was like, okay. And I didn't even know that you were going to record it for a podcast. I thought we were just going to literally schedule a sit down to talk and pick each other's brains and go through things. And that right away already got my gears turning, And then you said, no, I'm going to record it. I'm going to make a video and, I'm going to use it for the podcast. Right then and there, my brain started going again, but I'm excited about it. And hopefully, things go well and we could, both learn from this experience and then potentially do more in the future,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know this is going to help you too. For just because when I relaunch my podcast, right now I'm backloading it. So I have like podcasts ready on the gun. That way I'm not going to skip any. I can just start hammering them out there. I fully edit all my podcasts. So I go through, I make sure the audio looks good. And then like we talked about, I take the segments of it. And so you're one of the few people I work with that have a decent social media engagement. So everything that I post or share with you, that's your name also getting out there and also help getting that traction. So
for sure.
I like stuff like this where it could be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, we're both helping each other out here. 100%.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. So
it's learning, it's networking, it's everything all in one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This is the way that things should be. Now, I've only gotten to speak to you a little bit before about this. Like, I knew you competed. I know really nothing about your competitive background, why you got into it, how you got into it. From what I've seen in your front desk, you did well.
I did well.
What the hell happened?
Life, man. So I'm going to be honest with you. I never, ever thought that I would bodybuild, right? Now, granted, from the age of 14 on, I lived life like a bodybuilder, up until currently, but we'll get there, right? I ate like a bodybuilder. I was that kid that showed up to class with nothing. When I mean nothing, I had no backpack, no book, no paper, no pencil. I would walk into class with a protein shake or a bar and like a sandwich or ground beef, that was me. Like I was that kid who I learned about it young and I actually fell in love with just learning and watching your body change, the anatomy, the physiology, the science behind everything. But I never really even thought about stepping on a stage. Like that wasn't my thing. I didn't dream of being Mr. Olympia or doing any of that. I just loved the process genuinely, right? And it all started with, I'm going to make a long story short because as we talked yesterday, I can talk, right? This intro will be an hour long, right?
Well, it also makes for good podcasting and content too.
Sure.
Not many people can talk like us.
Yeah, that is valid. Sometimes it's a blessing and a curse, though,
Yes.
So, long story short, how I got into it is I always played sports, right? I was always into baseball, football, junior high, got into wrestling, things like that. My friends that would work out, I'm talking like when you probably shouldn't have been squatting and deadlifting. I'm talking like 8th grade, After school, let's go work out, let's do this, let's do that. I'm like, dude, we got to go to practice later for 2 hours. Like, I'm not going to go do that. Like, I'm going to go home and ride my bike or my skateboard or play my drums or whatever, you know? And naturally, though, like genetically, thankful, right? I already had the stocky shoulders. I was able to eat whatever I wanted. My dad had pizzerias, right? Like, I was able to eat whatever I wanted. I had abs. Like, those kids, they had to work a little bit harder for it, right? So I was like, you guys go, like, I'll be fine, So I always kind of blew it off and I'd make fun of them, And what happened is one of my good friends, Andrew, he was very, 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 like, I don't want to say timid. He wasn't timid, but like when it came to confrontation, he was always like, he was short like me, now he's taller. He got blessed and he got that growth spurt. I did it, right? But he was always shorter and always the real skinny kid, right? So he wasn't timid in a social setting, but in a confrontational setting, he was, right? And I was always just that loud, like rambunctious, full of energy kid. And we were in Michigan at his parents', they had a condo in New Buffalo. And we were walking down the street and there was a group of kids walking the opposite way. And the kid looked at me and he said something. And Andrew's like, don't say anything, And like, I was never taught that.
Right.
I was always told, shoot first, ask questions later. If someone in any threatening manner does something to you, you react, right? So I started saying stuff, Andrew like freaked out. He's like, dude, we got to go. They will beat us up. I was like, hell no, they won't. There's only 4 of them, whatever. So they kept walking, right? So we exchanged some words and they just kept walking, whatever. And I was like, see, I'm like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like, you got to stand up for yourself. So we walk to the beach, we hang out for like an hour. We get ready to leave. And we get up to the parking lot. They were waiting for us. They had cars. We were circled by like 20 people, right?
Oh, geez.
And he's like, you see, man? He was so pissed, right? And I was like, oh shit, like here we go, right? And that's when I was like, okay, like maybe I should have shut my mouth, Lo and behold, I ended up talking us out of it, right? We ended up, gift of gab, was able to negotiate our way out of that. We didn't have to fight 20, literally, like, they had to be, like, they were older. Like, we were probably 14 years old at that point. I know we couldn't drive yet and all that. So they all had cars. So they were older than for us for sure. I was like, dude, we would have got our asses kicked. So anyways, talked our way out of that. We got back to the condo and he's like, dude, I never want to feel like that again. He's like, I never want to feel like I can't protect myself. I never want to feel like blah, blah, blah. He's like, will you start working out with me? Because he knew that I played sports and stuff. But like, he knew I didn't work out or anything like that. But he's like, listen, like, I know like you at least know some stuff from having to do it with teams or whatever. Like, can you show me stuff? Whatever. It was funny. Like, he's like, I'll have my dad order me a Bowflex. We'll put it in the basement, like that's how you know I'm old, right? Like, some people watch this probably like, what the hell is a Bowflex?
I'm just more surprised that he could just ask his dad for a whole ass Bowflex and his dad's like, sure. I had to sneak into my parents' room to steal their P90X DVD.
So here's the thing, like he wasn't, and neither was I, like a spoiled kid, but his dad was one of those that his dad wanted him to get active, wanted him to play sports, wanted him to build confidence in that aspect, right? So that was something his dad probably jumped on the bandwagon for, and he did.
That's
right?
Awesome.
So I'm pretty sure he did order them the Bowflex. I should have signed it to my phone. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
If you want me to stand up, I will.
No, that's good.
I thought I did, but anyway, so he ended up getting the Bowflex, but we used it like twice. We're like, all right, this is shit, So long story short, I told him I'd help him out. We got a gym membership at a local Park District gym that was literally the block behind my house. So he'd ride his bike over. We'd literally jump the fence and we'd go there and work out, right? Started working out and just instantaneously fell in love with it. And you know how it is. Your first year working out is where you see like the most of your results. Whether you know what you're doing or not, if you're putting in effort, your body's responding, especially a male at that age, you know? So we both started getting stronger lifting, and he was like really, really big in like forums and stuff online. Like he was really big on like computer stuff. Like he was building computers. He was learning guitar stuff and all of that. We had a band and everything. That's how we actually met. But he was really hard into the research always, right? So he ended up finding some forums for working out, you know, and learning about supplementation and learning about just program design and things like that. And he's like, hey man, like you should really look into this, you know?
Right.
So he's made me an account, and it was One Fast 400 was the forum. It's not around anymore. That was the first forum that I got on. And from there, dude, it was just a deep dive. Every single day I was just making friends on there through just like messaging each other and learning off each other and just reading just wholeheartedly into everything. I mean, at that point, I was even reading about the drug aspect, and I was 14. No intentions of taking it, but I was like, this is interesting, you know?
Right.
So by probably within the next year, it was 6 days a week at the gym. I knew how to eat. I was literally a high protein diet. I read multiple books, Arnold Encyclopedia being one of the first ones, you know, a staple, right? And I just, from there, I just dove into other forums and just really, really, really just fell in love with the art of bodybuilding, you know? And at that point, still, like I would read Flex magazine, all that stuff, muscular development. And I had no intention of being a bodybuilder, but I wanted to look like those guys, you know? Like I literally, like I never even, until I started coaching people, and it's kind of backwards, we'll get into that, right? Until I started coaching people, I never even had like the thought of one day I'll go on the stage. You know what I mean? It was just like, dude, I want to be like that. You know, I want to be big and strong and, you know, just whatever. So that's the start of it. That's when I fell in love with bodybuilding.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. That's weird because I know you always say that, you know, we're very similar in a lot of aspects. I didn't even realize the start of how we got started was very similar. I never took it to the extreme of like, with no backpacks, all this stuff. I had to stop. I'm very academically inclined.
So, not to cut you off, I was, right? Like, I was in like, all my testing scores were always off the charts. Like, I'm talking like young though, right? Like elementary school, junior high and stuff. And then my dad always had it in my head. And again, my dad's someone who, he didn't really go to school. You know, he literally was put into a restaurant from the moment he could see over the table, and that was it, you know, like, so he always had it in my head that like, hey, listen, like we're going to open up pizzerias and more pizzerias. So like he was calling me out of school by the time I was 12 to go help him with school orders and things like that, you know? So in my head, by the time I hit high school, I was like, I'm not going to college. I'm going to own all these pizzerias and be successful, right? And complete opposite happened. I got into fitness, right? But like, that's when I kind of was like, all right, well, I'm not going to college anyway. So like, why am I putting all my time and effort into this? And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to make pizzas when I get home after the gym. And at school, I'm just going to read my bodybuilding magazines and eat my food. And that was it, right?
Back when they still had magazines.
Literally.
Well, no, I remember I got into bodybuilding because I got tired of getting picked on.
Okay.
Like I was really, really small, like 110 pounds going into high school. And constant rejection from girls. I always picked last whenever it came to like gym sports. Was never even big enough to play any sports in high school.
Really?
I'm like, you know what? Well, because I played volleyball. Okay. Which was, you didn't have to try out. You just made the team. So I'm like, all right, cool.
I'm great at this.
I'm really good at showing up. But the moment I couldn't make varsity, because I didn't have the skill level, I didn't have, the whatever, I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go get big.
Okay.
And sure as hell, I went from 110 pounds to over 180 in less than 2 years.
Wow.
Got stronger than all the football team and the wrestling team. The coaches were pissed that I wouldn't join them. I'm like, you guys walk around with injuries. I ain't doing that. Yeah. And then I would think, I'm getting bigger. People are going to stop making fun of me. No, they just found something else to make fun of me for. Oh, Buttice, you're getting big, huh? And I'd show up to class. I'd have my meal preps. And, my parents weren't really approving of it. So I had to go to 7-Eleven, get a job. And the 7-Eleven is right down the street from my school, which is right down the street from Jewel. So I'd work out after school. I'd go to Jewel. I'd get a whole rotisserie chicken, half-gallon almond milk, tuna packets, and avocados. And I'd walk home. And you could see the route that I took home because you'd see the drops of chicken bones as I was walking. But it's the same thing. Like, I feel like that's what really dictates who goes far in the sport versus who has that sticking point. It's like that old saying, those who enjoy walking will always travel farther than those who enjoy the journey will always travel farther than those who enjoy the destination. We just enjoyed that journey.
We loved the process.
So you're in your high school era.
And what we just said.
So you're going into your bodybuilding arc.
My bodybuilding arc. My winter arc now.
How do people talk like that? It sounds so stupid. You're going into your bodybuilding.
All you guys talking like that. Cut it out.
You're going into your bodybuilding career now, right? It was not expected.
Correct.
How did that end up falling into it? Because that's a big jump. Because going into bodybuilding, obviously you understood, because you were doing the research, that the extracurriculars and the PEDs and stuff, you needed to take those.
Yes.
So what was that altering decision of like, no, I'm gonna pin myself for fun every single other day?
Well, that's exactly what I did. So again, I was young and I had no real mentors at that point, like at least in the bodybuilding world, right? So coincidentally, the strip center that my dad's pizzeria was in, 3 doors down, was a nutrition store, right? And it was all bodybuilders in there. And I'm talking like old school bodybuilders, you know? Some of them were younger, but their dads were older and their dads were hanging out in there. So we were learning off of them too, you know? So I'd go in and essentially when I worked at pizzeria at that point, I'd work out at Bally, which was in the parking lot of my dad's gym, or my dad's pizzeria. So I'd go work out at Bally, I'd go in the health shop, I'd grab a protein shake, I'd sit there and shoot the shit with all the old timers, and then I'd go to work, you know? So I literally just heard what they said, and I just took what I learned on the forums, and I really learned the nutrition and the program design and stuff like that at a young age the right way, right? I didn't have, and again, there wasn't as much research as there is now even on the PED aspect of things, you know? So it was like, if you bodybuild, you take drugs. What do you take? This is what you take, and you do it, right? Like, people weren't as open about it, you know? So now, I mean, you go on YouTube and you watch videos of guys actually taking anabolics, you know?
So a 17-year-old that's going, my first strength cycle.
And listen, this is going to age me. When I was in high school, there was no YouTube, right? So like, we didn't have that. So we didn't really, I kind of want to, I'm going to fault myself because you're always responsible for doing your own research and making your own decisions. However, I'm happy that I learned the way that I did because now I can help people in a better way, right? So senior year was the first time that I took anything, right?
Wow.
And again, I went from 135 pounds sophomore year to 165 pounds beginning of senior year. And I wasn't stuck, but I wanted those same quick results that I got the first couple years. So at this point, this is when like pro hormones first came out. I'm talking 1AD, I'm talking legal gears, M1T, methyl 1 testosterone, and you could go into any health store and just buy it off the shelf for 25, 30 bucks, you know? So I was in there one day and I heard one of the guys talking about it. Holy shit, like I can't believe I gained 30 pounds off of this in 4 weeks and blah, blah. And I was like,
ears perked up.
What? Like, what? I was like, I got 30 bucks, you know? So I asked the owner at the time, his name was Rich. I was like, hey, is this legit, you know? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, this is the real deal, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, can I take it? He's like, oh man, like, you know, you're kind of young, blah, blah. Like, listen, like, and I told him, like, I'll go buy it at a different store. You know, like, and he's like, dude, he was straight, he's like, you're 17 years old. Like, I really can't tell you what to do, what not to do. He's like, technically you should be 18. Granted, knowing what M1T is, you should be way older than 18 when taking it for your first time, right? But he's like, legally, he's like, I shouldn't sell it to you. He's like, but I know you can go online. I know you can go to any other store. He's like, don't tell your dad you got it from me if he finds it. I'm like, all right, cool.
Fair.
Sure enough, I gained 25 pounds in 4 weeks. Granted, majority of it's water, right? And what happened was I posted on the forums about it, right? And at this point, I've been on the forums for a couple of years. I'm probably on, 10 plus forums at this point. And I got to know some of the guys pretty well, like John Meadows was somebody I communicated to pretty regularly on the forums.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matt Porter was a big one. Like those guys are people that like I followed all their stuff for so long.
Yeah.
And finally, like I just started interacting with their posts and then messaging each other. And Matt Porter ended up being a good friend of ours. He traveled with us when I had a clothing company.
Wow.
Long story short. Anyways, so
sorry to interrupt. Real quick for the younger audience, what is a forum?
A forum is
those
basically
don't really exist anymore.
They do, but it's on a way smaller level. So a forum is basically a platform online where you can go and it's basically a giant chat room. So it's basically Facebook without the pictures, where you can go in and let's say it's bodybuilding, for instance. You go in, you go to, let's just say bodybuilding.com, essentially has a forum on there still, right? Let's say you go there and you go to a forum section. That forum will give you different bullet points where, hey, this area, they're only talking about supplementation. This area, we're only talking about nutrition. This area, we're talking about program design, progression, regression, etc. Right? You go in there and there's hundreds, if not thousands of other people in that same forum where they're making posts, whether it's giving advice, asking for questions, and then others can get in there and then you can private message people on the side from there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to preface.
So, of course. So, what happened was, I was on those forums posting my results and whatever, and I was like, hey, this is what I took. Like, how long should I be off of it before I take it again? I want to take it again. And other people were like, yo, why are you taking that? Like there's so many things out there that you could take that would be better for you. And I was like, okay, like what? People were like, Sustanon, Cippin, And I was like, so I started researching, and I was like, okay, well, those are all injection, And then people started schooling me. They're like, hey, but listen, like, what you're doing, the damage to your liver, your kidneys, etc. Gaining 30 pounds in 4 weeks, how that stress on your internal organs, because majority of it was water retention, and how quickly you're going to lose a lot of those results and whatever. And they just really started just kind of filling me in on, hey, like that wasn't the right way to do it. Like you would probably have done less damage if you actually went and did the real thing, And that's when I started researching it. So I took a PCT, post-cycle therapy, and it was Clomid, Nolvadex, and HCG. And then from there, I was like, all right, let's research the real thing. And I found some stuff that I ordered from Holland, and it was pharmaceutical Sustanon amps and 2 milliliter Deca amps. And that was my first real cycle. Was I did 500 milligrams of Sust and 400 milligrams of Deca, and I blew the fuck up. Wow. And then I fell in love. And then that was it. And again, it was too young, right? I shouldn't have started that young, but I didn't have anyone telling me no, And then, by my early 20s, I found out that was probably the wrong move at that age. And I learned about the damage that I did to my natural hormones. And because of that, I found out that at a young age, hey, you're going to have to be on, TRT for the rest of your life, essentially, because you crashed. So what I did is after I cycled everything, I came off everything. I did a real post-cycle after, I think, my second real cycle. And I just wanted to see what really, really happens, right? And at that point, I took multiple, cycles. I took the pro hormones, whatever. My natural test was like 119 nanograms a deciliter, Wow. And I was like, wow. So started basically self-prescribing TRT to myself and learning more about that process. And at that point, I kind of realized I was in for the long haul, and it almost kind of just made me dive deeper into the knowledge aspect of it. And then obviously bodybuilding. So, yeah.
Wow.
That was my intro to PEDs,
So you took it young, right? You started young. Now, jump forward into today's age, we're starting to see a lot of these bodybuilders show up younger and younger, huge.
Correct.
Like massive. Obviously without the muscle maturity, but we just got the world record, right? He beat Arnold, Anton, I think his name is. He got picked up by Axon Sledge. What was he, 19?
19 years old, man.
19.
And that's the thing, right? Like, is that the best thing for a 19-year-old to be doing? No. But can a 19-year-old do it now more safely than they could 15, 20 years ago? Yeah, because the data and research is out there showing them the do's and don'ts, right? Granted, I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying that he's not going to have negative effects long-term based on what he's doing, because first and foremost, the stress on anyone being that big, it's stress on your heart, right? So the longer we're carrying, even if it's lean body mass, but a heavier amount of it, the longer you have to walk around carrying 200, 220, 230 pounds, right? It's just stress on your heart. So it's wear and tear. You're already taking years off your life, right? Now you throw in some of the other compounds that cause more internal organ damage and stuff like that. Like, regardless, there's going to be damage done. All I'm saying is it's not right for someone at 19, because think about it. If he looks like that at 19, how long has he been doing shit for?
Right.
You know? And it's probably not just test and, maybe some D-ball. He's probably throwing in growth hormone and insulin and other factors, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is it's almost inevitable, though, at this point, that we're going to have people getting bigger, younger, because, again, it's not hidden anymore. Like, most people up until the YouTube and Instagram era, most people believed Arnold was fucking natural. You know what I mean? Like, because it was so taboo, bodybuilding in general, that people didn't really talk about the drug aspect, you know? Now, even though it's still like some of the older generations look at these big guys like, ew, but in our generation, it's so much more widely accepted, not even bodybuilding, but fitness in general, that there's just so much more out there that people are constantly reading and learning about and wanting to be like that person, that they could go out there and they could get at least the right guidance to do the wrong things.
Yeah, I mean, I am glad he is under Seth Ferrosi, who is, he is as bro science as he gets, and he knows what the hell he's doing. What I do wish, though, is I wish they were more open. Yes, transparency is there, but not fully. Right? You still have like the big pros that are, 270 pounds.
There's the difference, though. So I already know where you're going to get at. So a lot of these pros, though, they're not open about it because of their sponsors and endorsements, right?
Really?
So think about it. Think about Phil Heath, Jay Cutler, Muscle Tech era, right?
Okay.
Aging myself again, all right? But perfect example. Everybody knew these guys had to be taking something, right?
Yeah,
but what are they saying? Hey, no, I'm taking Pump Tech, Nitro Tech, Cell Tech, this, that, whatever, Gakic. I'm taking all of these products, and this is what's making me look like this, right? Same thing. Hey, I'm working for Under Fuad, and I'm working for Hostel, right? And I'm taking this, and this. Well, people are buying those products now thinking, hey, this guy looks like this, and he takes this, and this supplement company is paying me $5,000 a month, If they say, hey, listen, like half the time I skip my supplements and I just do my protein shake, but I'm taking a gram of test, I'm taking 600 of a 19 Norn, I'm taking some orals, right? People are probably gonna be like, I'm gonna save the $300 on my natural subs. I'm just gonna take protein to make sure I can get a higher protein source in easily, and I'm gonna spend the rest on gear. You know what I mean?
Before we move on, I will say this. Like, people need to realize, I used to be that guy that I would spend $400 on MTS Nutrition back when it was popular, thinking, all right, I got all the tools I need, not realizing that the 500 milligrams of testosterone I was taking a week was doing the most out of all of that.
Yep.
And really, I only take what you tell me to take, but really, other than that, even a lot of those aren't really a necessity. It's just, it helps.
And that's what I tell a lot of people, man. That's what I tell a lot of people is, they'll come to me and they're taking, I'm talking upwards of $500-600 a month of natural subs, right?
Jeez.
And I'm like, man, that's a lot. And again, some of the health subs and organ support and stuff like that, I'm like, hey, take that, right?
Yep.
But they're taking all these other things, and I'm like, hey, listen, I know money's tight because a lot of them communicate with me. Like, money's tight. You can get away without taking this, and this. I'm like, really? They're like, that's $200 a month savings. I'm like, yeah, maybe. If you're doing everything you absolutely need to do, maybe that's making you 0.5% better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, these supplement companies don't want their athletes basically saying, hey, this is exactly what we're taking, right? Because it's going to deter people from actually taking their products, right? But now you have some of these guys who, you know, they've either retired or they don't own a supplement company or they're not endorsed to one or whatever. They'll talk more freely. But when I say the research is out there more, maybe not necessarily the actual pros are fully open, but you can go on the internet, and whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or just simple Google searches, you can teach yourself pretty much everything that exists right now. You know what I mean? If you want to take the time and learn, the research is out there. Obviously, working under somebody like you, like me, who have experience and they could actually show that they genuinely care for you and watch out for your best interests is the best way to do it. But what I'm saying is, there is definitely more info out there now that people can access than they've ever had before.
Right, right. And before we go off on that whole tangent, that would be a great other podcast.
We can do an entire one about that, you know?
Like, because I love how things we put in our body and how our body reacts and the biochemistry behind it. Oh my gosh. So with that being said, now we're transitioning into like your bodybuilding career.
So what happened was I was working for my dad, as I said, right? Making pizzas. And I thought that that was going to be my thing. I thought bodybuilding was just my hobby. Again, from a non-competitive aspect, that is my hobby. This is going to be my career, is making pizzas. And hey, I love both, right? So what happened is I actually told this story earlier to a client, right? Because she's like, how did you get into this? And she's never asked me. I've been training over 10 years, right? And it just, we were talking.
Never asked how you came about.
we were talking about her son and like career stuff, and then just kind of how it went into it, right? And I'm gonna make a long story short, but basically my sole income came from delivering, right?
No kidding.
So I was a kid, I'm talking, 16 years old at that time, when I first started delivering. And I was making $200-300 a night cash delivering pizzas, So I wanted to learn the inside. My dad wanted me to learn the inside, and I did, right, at a young age. But when it came to like being able to pay me to manage the inside, one, like, he didn't have the extra money to be like, hey, here's a $60,000 salary, like, go at it, right?
Right.
He already had a manager, So my need was really to be there on the weekends working inside. My sole source of revenue, though, was delivering basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'd stay inside, right? So eventually I lost my license, right? It wasn't a DUI or anything like that, but it was just reckless driving, right? A lot of it was speeding. Again, you're delivering pizzas times money,
I was going to say 30 minutes for free.
Yeah, so, right? So, I had a lot of tickets there, and at a young age, they're not very resilient about it. So, after 2 tickets, you get the 30-day suspension. After, then you keep going. And I ended up getting to the point where I fell asleep one night, and I overslept and didn't set my alarm. I was supposed to open up for a catering party on a weekend, and I slept at a girl's house, and I had to fly or whatever. So I didn't know that they were trying to pull me over, and because I was passing them from dead stops and didn't realize it, I was just rushing. I ended up getting pulled over and got really screwed. I was doing 120. I got reckless driving, this and this. And with previous suspensions, they revoked my license, right? So, all right, I can't deliver, but now at this point, I had a car payment, I had gym memberships, I had my own phone bill I was paying for, I had motorcycle insurance, all this stuff, right? And I was like, well, Dad, I need more hours. I don't need you inside. Like, I'm not going to fire them because you fucked up,
right?
Which rightfully so, So I was like, all right, in Bali, I used to work out there all the time. They would ask me to train there. Like, why don't you train here? Why don't you train here? Why don't you train here? I was like, no, like I just do this for fun, whatever. So literally, the next time they asked me, this guy Kevin walked up to me. He's like, hey man, he's like, are you ever just gonna let your body make you money? And when he said that, I looked at him like, porn. I'm like, that didn't even cross my mind. At that point, I knew there was a void I had to fill, right? So I was like, how much money can I actually make here, And he was like the fitness manager, right? So he was in charge of the personal training department. So he sat me down and he just went over things with me hypothetically. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do it, He said, when can you start? I'm like, whenever you could get the paperwork done, So I literally started there the following week, and within the first 3 months, they ended up firing him.
Oh.
Sucks. Firing him, I took his position.
Wow.
And I was in charge of the training department. And then within the 6 months, I was helping out do all of the workshops for Chicagoland for the hiring and developing of new trainers and teaching, again, program design and sales aspect of it and whatever, And then after 2 years of doing that club and doing those workshops, I went to the biggest Chicagoland location, and I was running that location, and I had 47 employees under me, and I was learning more so the business end at that point, but I was still training clients, right? So I had some that I brought from the original location, they followed me, etc. But I wasn't allowed to train within my managing hours. My managing hours basically 9 to 1 and then 4 to 8. So I would take clients in the morning beforehand, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, manage, work out from 1 to 3, wash up, manage 4 to 8, train another client, and then go home, So with that, I obviously, at that point I'm training for years and I'm still working out and eating like a bodybuilder. I had a couple of clients that lost a ton of weight with me, and they never really wanted to bodybuild or anything like that. But I had one girl come up to me, Gabby, and she was like, hey, listen, my friend did a bikini competition and I really want to do one. Would you help me out with that? And I straight up told her, I'm honest as I am with all my clients. Like, hey, listen, like, it's not really like my thing, like I treat myself like a bodybuilder. I've dieted myself up, dieted myself down. I read about it all. I do it. I've never trained a client for a competition. I said, so if you want to hire someone else to understand, I said, if you want me to do it with you, I said, it's going to be a learning curve for both of us, right? I said, I won't charge you. I said, let's do the first one free, whatever. And she went and she got first place. And after that, like, I was kind of like, man, like, I kind of liked that, It was kind of a different feel. Like, usually I do the bodybuilding thing for myself, but at that point I was doing bodybuilding, or I was doing, weight loss stuff, speed and agility stuff. Some of my clients were strength people, but, a lot of the in-person training people aren't paying for bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
So it was a different world for me. And I was like, man, okay. And then because of that, I had someone else that saw her do it, asked me to do it. I'm like, okay, well, now I got these girls doing it under me. And I was like, how do I get guy bodybuilders? And I was like, okay, well, a girl who sees a guy in shape, most of them will automatically be like, he knows what he's doing. A guy is going to be like, have you done it before?
Yep.
So I was like, all right, like, I guess I got to get on a stage, So at that point, I was like, okay. And it's funny. I still at that point was like, should I do it myself? Should I not? Whatever. And at this point, I'm working at Bally's, and I started a clothing company. And on the plane, we were going to do an expo. Someone in front of us, I'm not even going to give him credit because we had a big falling out because he was stealing money from us, but a whole other story.
Gotcha.
Made friends with this guy, and who had a big time company as well as being a prep coach. And he was like, hey man, like, you're thinking of bodybuilding? And I'm like, yeah, I'm tossing up back and forth. He's like, well, I know you like bodybuilders, but let me prep you for free. I was like, why for free? And he was like, dude, he's like, we're going to do a lot of cross networking. He's like, I see what you guys are doing with your apparel. I need some apparel done. Like, we'll kind of help each other. So I was like, all right. So I did my first prep, did it with him. And I got second in open bodybuilding, and or open middleweight bodybuilding, not open super heavies, but and then I got first in novice, overall in novice, and that kind of like lit a fire. And at that point, like, I was like, okay, like, now what, And instantaneously, I posted some stuff on Facebook and Instagram that next day, and I just had a bunch of people messaging me like, hey, you did a show? I've always been thinking about doing a show. How was the process? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I think within that first month, I had 7 bodybuilder clients.
Oh my gosh.
And which was awesome, but I wasn't even expecting it, So at that time now, I was like, all right, well, let's give it a go. So I didn't take them all on. I only took 3 of them, which were friends. And same thing, I prepped them for free, right? All 3 of them, first place, second place, right? So I was like, all right, like, maybe I kind of do know what I'm doing. Maybe I could actually do this as like a business, you know? So from there, that's kind of what I did is I kept my in-person people more, you know, lifestyle or general health, wellness. And I started kind of reaching out on, you know, social media, letting people know that like I will prep coach, you know, and kind of it just kind of just opened up its own thing from there, you know? So
just to give people an idea, so people know like personal training is kind of like a very generalized term, right? Every gym you go to, hey, with your membership, you'll get a free one-on-one personal training session, and it's garbage. They kind of run you through this BS workout and then be like, see, you did great. Yeah. You want to sign up for more? So what is the difference between a regular, just generic personal trainer that you'll see at, I was going to say Planet Fitness, they don't have personal trainers, they have front desk people.
There's a big difference there, yeah.
Right. At your regular commercial gyms versus a prep coach, right? What's the difference? Why are you more expensive than just a regular personal trainer, or you know what I mean?
There's a lot more attention to detail that goes in hand, right? So, I mean, again, if you're a great trainer, you should be putting almost as much effort into any type of client, right? So I don't want to say that a bodybuilding client should be more expensive than a, you know, someone coming in here just to lose 30 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Because again, we're their motivators, we're their counselors, we're there to make sure they do everything the safe way and the healthy way, you know? So there's a lot of responsibility that comes in hand of being just a regular personal trainer aside of just being a prep coach, right? There is responsibility, and if you're someone who takes it seriously, and which most of your corporate gym people don't because they don't see themselves as career trainers, so they don't invest as much into it. But I think every trainer should be expensive, right? And I think every coach should be expensive because there needs to be value behind what you're doing. And as soon as there's no value, even though you have to genuinely care about helping the person, if you're not able to pay your bills at the end of the month and you're helping all these people, but at the end of the month, you're stressed and you're eating, you're going to become resentful towards what you do, right? So you need to be able to price yourself at the point where you could at least make a living and whatever, right? So there should be an expense behind it. But the reason why this field is expensive is because you're literally in charge of making them healthy, right? Like, again, so I'm going right into your in-person clients first. The amount of people that I've had lose over 100 pounds that were pre-diabetic and we totally changed that around, that were on blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication, we got them completely off. Like, that's life-changing, you know? Like, people don't realize that, like, hey, listen, yeah, you're gonna make this investment, but you're gonna live way longer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're not gonna have all the medical bills, all this, all that. Like, the money you're gonna save from changing your lifestyle, from less alcohol consumption, less going out to bars, less fast food, all of that, it's gonna be a wash anyway. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily think that there should be a vast difference in pricing from one to another. I think it's more so just, you know, a lot of my bodybuilding clients are online versus in person, right? Because, you know, for them, they don't necessarily need the motivation. They're bodybuilding because they love it. They're excited to go to the gym, right? So a lot of the in-person people, their motivation is getting to the gym, you know? The bodybuilders, they love that. So as long as I'll put somebody online, as long as I know that they have proper form, they have proper technique, they're motivated, they like going to the gym, et cetera, right? Then at that point, okay, well, now let's just make sure your workouts make sense. And that's what, you know, let's make sure your nutrition makes sense and then cater from there. But the detail that goes into the difference between a prep coach versus a lifestyle in-person is when you're prepping for a show, right? Every day, every meal, every cardio session, every workout matters because there's a timeline at the end of it, right? So not only do you need to get the most results in a shorter period of time, right? But now you need to make sure that you do it the most safe way and the most efficient way, right? Versus someone coming in to lose 40 pounds. Yeah, they might want to do it in 3 months. And you might tell them realistically it's X months, whatever, right? But there's no deadline. I need this by this date. So the actual accountability from the changes aspect that a coach is making, it's different, right? We're making it more realistic for them. We know they don't want to be an Olympic marathon, or they don't want to be a Olympic runner. They don't want to be a Mr. Olympia. They don't want any of that, right? So for them, we need to make it something that's sustainable for them. Like, how can we make them lose this weight or get healthier, whatever the goal is, right? In a decent duration where they're still going to stay motivated, but they're not going to get kind of thrown off from it because, oh my God, now he has me eating like him because he's a bodybuilder. And now if I want to get healthy, I can only eat chicken and rice and asparagus. You know what I mean? Like you, with a lifestyle, you have to make it a little bit more feasible to them. You have to make it more realistic because a lot of them, they don't love this. This is already a chore, right? So it's a more slow, gradual process, but still obviously holding them accountable, make sure they're doing what they need to do. Like if my clients aren't progressing still from a bi-weekly standpoint, we're not seeing any change in my in-person clients. Hey, we're sitting down, we're having a conversation, we're making changes, whether it's in your motivation, whether it's in your approach, or whether it's actually things that I need to do on my end with your nutrition or cardio, right? From a prep standpoint, it's, again, we need this, whether it's a 12-week prep, 16-week prep, 20-week prep, we know by this date, we have to be our best. So it's almost at that point, you're talking daily communication. Are you doing your workouts? Are you getting your cardio in? Are you skipping supplementation? Are you consistent with all of those things that are going to make you be your best bodybuilder that day you get on stage? So you're not on stage being like, man, I wish I didn't skip that cardio session. I wish I would have listened to my coach when he told me, hey, listen, make sure you're getting your water and it makes a difference. Make sure you're not skipping meals. Make sure, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like the accountability, because the timeline is there and they're also putting their safety in your hands. I feel just kind of, you have to hold yourself to a little bit higher of a standard. And again, I say that loosely because I don't want in-person or lifestyle clients that you or I or others have to think like, oh, they don't care about us as much as the other people. It's not that, it's what the other people are doing because of the drasticness in it. And they're trying to make your 2-year results, actually they're going way above that because of the body fat they're getting to, but they're trying to make such drastic changes in months that you're not going to make in years. So there's a lot more responsibility on our end to, one, make sure they remain mentally stable while doing so, right? But also staying healthy. You know me, like, hey, do you got blood work for me? Let me see it. You know, what changes do we have to make based on that? Hey, we wanted to take A, B, and C, but guess what? We have to eliminate B because of X. You know what I mean? Like, there's more that goes into it, which is why a good coach should have a price on it, because if you're paying him $50 a month, but he's got other clients paying him $400 a month, like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, kind of going back to what you said about, like, if you as a coach or a client, or sorry, coach or a trainer aren't getting paid enough, it's going to start building resentment. When I worked for a commercial gym and I was hustling, I was there literally from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and same thing, I worked out in the middle, and it was draining me so much. And the gym was charging these people $60 at the most to work out with me, and maybe giving me $18, and then taxes on top of that. And I'm like, you don't care. I'm making it hard for me to care. I'm also barely getting paid jack diddly squat. So at the very end, I hate to admit it, but I'm like, it just ended up just turning into a hangout. Like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, we're going to do this, whatever. Because I was struggling so much. I'm like, I know you're paying a lot, but I'm not seeing anything from that.
And it sucks, you know, and like, I actually had this conversation with a client yesterday. She came in here for posing for her first time, and you know, we started talking about what she does for work, et cetera. And, you know, she used to personal train and was training 60 hours a week, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you sound like you were successful. Why'd you stop? And she's like, I was training all those hours and I was making nothing. And I was like, corporate? She goes, yep, same thing. She was getting $17 an hour, you know. And she's like, you know, by the time like I did my driving and my gas and my time, whatever, she's like, even though I enjoyed the job, like I couldn't pay my bills, you know? So she ended up getting out of it, and now she regrets it. And we kind of had a talk on that. But that's one of the things that I saw the most, and that's what Bally was awesome for, is they paid their employees very well. Probably why they went out of business, but you know, they overpaid. I mean,
that's a good reason to go out of business, though. If there's going to be a reason,
but they kept their salaries and on all their managers high, and they paid their trainers and employees good hourly wages. But But the difference was they weren't evolving with the times. So all their clubs were built in the 80s or early 90s, and they still looked like that. Now you had all these exports and lifetimes coming about that had all this new stuff, and everything was pretty and whatever. And, people get sucked in by that, especially not the bodybuilder, the average gym goer,
Yeah.
So now you're putting out all this money, but now you're losing a ton of memberships. And if you just drop your pay on people, they're going to leave anyways. Then you don't have employees. So it kind of put themselves in a bad spot. But dude, I had trainers that worked under me that were 18 years old making $120,000, $150,000 a year training, But we did it in levels, right? And, you made a certain hourly rate based on your level, based on your certifications and your productivity, right? And then you got commissions on top of that. So if you sold, $10,000, $2,000 packages of 20 grand at that month of training, right? Well, you got $2,000 on top of your regular pay. You got 10% of that commission. Then if you, had people sign up for memberships, whatever, you got commissions on that. Supplements, you got commissions on that. So they were making good money, and most of them were making about 40, 45 bucks an hour training, So that's why I think that they had a great success with their trainers. Valley was known for their training department, versus, all these other places, these big box gyms now who are paying their trainers 17, 18, 20 bucks an hour, but they're charging anywhere from 75 to 125 a session. It's like as much as you care about your client and you want to help them. It's also like, okay, well, I'm working for the man, and the man isn't paying me, and now I'm going home, and although I helped you, I can't pay my own bills, so who's helping me, Right. And at that point, it's like, hey, I want to do this because I love it, but you're going to burn yourself out, and that's where kind of like doing what you're doing and going off and building a brand and making yourself your own thing. It might be a lot more work, but the long term, you're going to stay motivated, and you're going to be able to pay yourself.
Yeah, right now my only roadblock is like lately it's been taking me an hour and a half just to get over here.
Yeah.
Which I drive over a whole work week in just 1 month. That already takes a lot out of me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start shifting more towards what we had talked about the other a little while back, is like shifting more to temporary online for now. Wait until I'm able to move back out here, and then while I'm over there, build up my brand enough so when I move back over here, it's freaking...
Yeah, you have people lined up at the door.
Just gung-ho. So getting caught up, now we're in present times. You've been posting a lot about stuff that you're looking forward to doing in the future. I saw you actually eting normal food the other day, meal 2, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy now? Like doing cardio?
And again, man, like it's the love for it never went away, right? But there were things that took me back from bodybuilding myself, right? I stopped competitive bodybuilding because of the fact that life just got busy, man. Like at that point I didn't really get into how I opened up here, but I'll just cliff note version that one. It's not that important. Bally got bought out by LA Fitness. Realized real crappy company to work for. Basically was like, hey, have trainers that need a place to go, have clients that need a place to go. Let's open up shop somewhere else. Hooked up with a buddy at that time. Opened up here. He's no longer here. I ended up buying him out. There was just differences in what we wanted to see the gym grow to, right? And throughout that time, it was, okay, well, now I was still training 16 hours worth of clients a day, trying to bodybuild myself. My dad had spinal fusion. He couldn't run his pizzeria. So I was literally here from 5 in the morning. All right. I'd train until 1. I'd work out. I'd run to the pizzeria at 3. Thankfully, it's only 10 minutes from here, if not less. I'd go get all the ovens on, turn down. By the time the employees got there, by 3:30, I'd run back here. I'd train 4 to 8, and then I'd go close there until midnight.
My gosh.
And that's what I did. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't working. Like I'm sometimes having to skip workouts. I'm sometimes not able to get meals in. Like I wasn't able to go full speed in the bodybuilding when I thought at that point I would. And then my client schedule with competitors got busier, and I was like, okay, well, what if I do this show? And I was like, I got 3 clients in it. What if I do this show? I got 4 clients in it. I was like, I don't want to prep a client for a show that I'm in, because if they do great, I'm going to get mad at myself. Like, hey, you put more focus on them than you. Like, why did you choose that show? You should have done a different show. Or if I do great and they do bad, they're going to be like, hey, you weren't focused on us enough, you know?
Yep.
So there was that, and then I got engaged, and, you know, I was like, okay, there's a lot going on. Let's put it on the back burner. And I put it on the back burner, and then I was just, what I did, I kind of fell in love with the lifting again, right? And it was like kind of like not a stress, like, oh, like I skipped a meal today, but who cares, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just having fun again, right?
Yeah.
And then I tore my pec. And after that, it was just kind of like a downward spiral of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, like why at that point, like I just had my first baby. I fast forwarded a year, but I had a baby. I tore my pec, had the baby when she was a month old. I couldn't even reach into the crib to take her out. And I was like, why am I doing this? You know, like you're getting older, you're busy as hell. You have a wife that depends on you, a baby that depends on you. Like you always said you didn't want to be a professional bodybuilder. So why are you training like a maniac, putting your health at risk, putting your physical ability at risk, right? When you still need to go to work and provide, right? Like your clients depend on you, your family depends on you. At that point, I was kind of like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to bodybuild anymore. I might work out like a bodybuilder, which that slowed down too. Like, I'm not going to work out like a bodybuilder. I'm not going to eat like a bodybuilder. I'm just going to run a business and provide for my family and do all that. And it was great because I was able to even put more into my clients, and that helped grow every aspect of the business, right? But the negative was I was losing love for myself, not in like a depressive standpoint, but like
it was a part of you.
That was like the one thing that I did for me, and it was kind of gone, you know? And it was like every time I would try and get back into it after, I would take steps backwards again, because I'd be like, okay, well, I'd get in my head like, hey, like you don't feel the way you used to feel, because you know, again, I still have limitations because of my pec tear, because I didn't heal correctly after the surgery or whatever. But it's like, hey man, you used to do 12 reps on incline dumbbell press with the 150s, and now you're struggling with the 50s. You know what I mean? Like,
it messes
and it's
with
a mental fuck, you know? It's like, shit, I used to be the biggest guy in this gym. Now all my clients are passing me up. But then I felt like I don't want to go work out right now because I don't want them to see me struggling. You know what I mean? Like, and it was a mental thing. And then like after that, you kind of just push it off for so long that getting back into it is hard. And then you have more kids, and then the business grows more, and life just becomes more and more busy. And I finally got to the point now where I've been able to taper back, because thankfully online has grown, memberships have grown. I've been able to taper back on my in-person clients to where I'm having more time now. So I'm like, hey, I know every day I can set that hour aside for me to lift. And so I started doing that more recently, and I'm getting 3 to 4 lifts in a week, right? And it's not to the caliber that I would love, but it's because I'm not eating enough. So I'm not fueled enough, and I'm not recovering enough. I'm working out, and I'll skip 2 days, and I'll still be sore going in the next lift, you know? So, okay, like, hey, listen, if you want to do it, and I'm enjoying the lift aspect, just throwing my headphones on and just kind of zoning out and having me time, I'm enjoying that, but I'm not getting any real benefit from it because I'm eating 1 meal a day. So that's why the other week I was like, you know what, listen, like you have the time, like start leading by example again. You know, I want to, because I'm cutting off the in-person training more, you know, I want to grow more the gym. I want to grow more online coaching. And with that, I'm like, I need to be more relevant with social media again, and to be able to be confidently be going out there and posting again. Like, listen, all the people that grew up in this area that have known me doing this the last 18 years, they know who I was before, right? But like, in order for these younger people coming up who don't know my history and don't know that, hey, listen, like, even though he's not that 215 pound 5'4" bodybuilder anymore, like, they're not, people who don't know that, they're going to be like, I'm going to go pay that guy online who lives in California that looks the part still and walks and talks the part, you know? So I'm not saying I want to get back on a stage. I'm not saying I want to be 215 or 20 pounds again. I want to look and feel the part again. Not just for the business aspect, but for me. I want to love doing it again, you know? And I think organically, if I love doing it again, it's naturally just going to grow other aspects. You know? I
mean, I almost want to put the correlation, right, between your old job at Valley View versus we're kind of like you are now. You know what I mean? Do you see the relationship that's kind of going on there?
100%, man.
And if you ever, listen to like Andy Frisella and stuff like that. He used to be the 300-pound CEO that ran a supplement company, a fitness company.
Yeah.
And he
and those are the people that I talk shit about. You know, I'm like, you're going to teach me health? You know what I mean? Right. And that's the thing, like, again, a lot of my clients have seen that I produce good clients, right? Yeah. A lot of my clients have seen what I used to look like, so they know that I know. But at the same time, it's like, they look at me, they know, oh man, Greg didn't work out for 2 weeks. They know, oh, Greg's eating one meal a day. Greg's withering away. Greg, you know, like at that point, like, I'm not going to lie. Like if that was my coach, part of me probably would lose some motivation. You know what I mean? Like I probably wouldn't take it as serious because it wouldn't seem as heartfelt as someone going through the same motions you're going through. So, you know, but different people, some people, they don't need that. I mean, look at Chris Aceto, right? Yeah. He doesn't look like he's touched a weight ever in his life, you know, and he and even Hani, right? Like, but they produce some of the best worldwide bodybuilders, you know? Yeah. But again, I'm saying, some people would look at it and they're not going to be motivated by someone who's not walking the walk as well, you know?
So it's funny that you say that because, I mean, you see me do it with some clients here, and actually it's what I used to do with some of my clients at they don't matter at Export. They've been bought out. They don't exist anymore. It doesn't matter. Is every once in a while, I will actually go through and I'll train with my clients and go through the whole thing from start to finish with them. And I started doing that because the feedback that I got was, hey, I really respect and appreciate you doing this because that means you're telling me to do stuff that you won't do yourself type deal. And showing that you walk the walk. And also, it's a mutual respect for them to be like, I'm worthy enough to do this as well. Like, I'm not, no, you go do that stuff. I'm going to go do this stuff. It's like, I'm kind of bringing that middle ground together.
No, for sure.
Which I've got nothing but positive feedback when I do stuff like that. I think it's
awesome. You know, I think it's awesome.
So with that being said, right, and I know I touched on that comparison between your old job and now, what happened with your old job? They lost because they weren't changing with the times.
Correct.
So and now you mentioned with the new social media stuff.
I've been fortunate, right, that the business has only continued to grow, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I'm a family man. I want more time at home. I want more things. So if I want to grow the gym and I want to grow online, I have to open up time somewhere. And what's that? That's eliminating more in person, right? But okay, well, that's a great chunk of what provides for my family, right? Like that's a great chunk of what provides into reinvesting into the gym, you know? So it's like, how am I going to supplement that? Well, keep growing your brand, right? In order to grow my brand, I have to get more comfortable with the times. I have to get more comfortable being on a camera and actually showing my relevancy in the industry still, you know, not just showing my clients and sharing their posts, right? But actually getting out there and showing people that I talk the talk, but I also walk the walk. And that's kind of like now, and me and Michelle were talking about it. We were recently on a trip for a buddy's wedding and we had a couple long car rides, right? Because of where the airport was located. So we had a lot of talking and like just, you know, changes that we want to make and stuff going with the business moving forward or whatever. And I kind of told her my plans and what I want to do. And she's like, you sound excited. And I'm like, I am, because it's almost like I'm like about to almost restart something. You know what I mean? Like it gets very exciting again because, you know, you get, I don't want to say complacent because you and me aren't the type of people who ever really get complacent, but you get okay tapping the brakes a little bit sometimes when things are going well and you know, okay, like, hey, lights aren't going to be turned off tomorrow if I don't do this, right? You know, and now knowing like, hey, listen, like you're going to cut a lot of your income. Like you have to replace that, kind of lights a fire under your ass. And it's like, okay, well, hey, all right, like a new challenge. And like, I'm excited about it, you know? And again, it's leading me to do things like this and to learn from others and kind of things that I've really stopped doing the last couple of years because I've been so engulfed in just what I have to do on a day-to-day basis that my networking kind of has basically turned to none. My you know, just my reach and my want to you know, learn from others and stuff. It's not that there wasn't a want, but it was like, well, when do I have time to do that right now? You know, like, 'cause I'm still training the clients, right? And then after the clients, like, okay, well, you know, try and squeeze a workout in, clean up the gym, do what you got to do. get out of here, pick this one up from school, take her to gymnastics. Okay, sit on your computer before dinner, answer some emails. Okay, all right, kids are in bed, go back to your computer, write the new plans that you have to write. Okay, well now what planning did I do for the rest of the business? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What back end stuff did I do for anything else? All I did was work. I didn't do any, exactly. Yeah. I did maintenance. I didn't do anything to build for the future, right? So how do I do that? I have to create more time. Well, to create more time, I have to cut revenue somewhere, right? Either that or I cut being a dad somewhere, and I'm not the type to do that, right? So my dad, like you said, was a great dad. He was a provider, right?
Yeah.
But my dad wasn't at my sport events, right? My dad wasn't picking us up from school. My dad wasn't eating dinner with us. We woke up, he was asleep because he got home from the pizzeria at 1 or 2 in the morning, right? We got home from school, he was at the pizzeria. So unless we saw him on a Sunday morning, we didn't really see him, right? So that was always one of my goals, is get me in a place where I could pick my kid up from school. I could eat dinner with them. And yes, my wife hates it. I'm trying to get better at it. That's why sometimes when I'm at home, people are probably like, man, he's at home. Why is he not answering me? My phone's delayed, but the first thing I do now when I get home is I put my phone down and I don't touch it for like the first 2 hours I'm home.
That's good.
You know?
Yeah.
And I just play with the kids who aren't at school, you know? And then after that, I'll get back on there. They have their sporting events, whatever. I'll hop on my computer or my phone, knock some stuff out. And then it's dinner time. Again, until those kids eat dinner, take bath, go to sleep, I won't touch my phone, you know? Yeah. Then I say, okay, well, now you also have to put some time for your wife, your relationship. So there's only so much time in a day. So in order for me to maximize and still keep building what I want to build, and I don't want to give up family time, I have to grow in other ways, right? And that's utilizing social media and building more of a brand in that avenue than just being that hourly worker training back to back client, right? Right. And by me eliminating that, it also opens up more time for my competitive clients to come in here and be like, hey, listen, like, I'm off on Tuesdays. Can I come in and can I get a lift in with you at 10 a.m.? You know, like things like that, you know? Right.
I mean, I'm a big believer that I'm a godly man. I believe that he's kind of, things happen for a reason, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I think it's really funny how we started engaging more right around the time that you felt like you needed to change up something.
As well as you did, you know,
right. Go figure. In the exact area that I don't want to say an expertise in, but I have a lot of experience and years in. So I definitely think that maybe there was some higher strings being pulled there, which I'm very grateful for.
For sure, and that's my biggest thing is like, I'd like to think I have a great business sense, right? Like I know business. I've helped other friends build their brands and stuff like that. I'm great at, you know, the ideology of it, right? Yep. I'm great at knowing how to forecast things for the future and what have you. But when it comes to the technology aspect, that's my biggest downfall. You know, and I've tried watching, I'm a very visual person. Like I need to do it and have it done in front of me, right? So like I've read, I've watched videos, whatever, but like learning the social media aspect and the posting, the editing, the this, that, whatever, like I'm not good at. And that's something that you are great at. And it just so happens to be that this is the time that you're trying to rebrand your podcast and get it out there again. And I'm trying to do this, that, like it works perfectly because we can both bounce so many ideas off each other, but at the same time, you know, I could be learning how to do this where I've never had anybody, because again, a lot of people that I look up to business-wise are all older than me. So when it comes to the technology aspect, they're more behind than I am on it, you know? So somebody like you who's younger and motivated, whatever, and you dove in and taught yourself all of this, right? Like, that's like the perfect person to learn from, you know? So and I'm thankful that you take the time and you want to teach me and that you want to do this stuff with me, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. So to kind of close out here, I'm going to check the time real quick. I don't even know how long we've been talking for. Nice, good deal. Perfect. This just goes to show that we can just talk and talk and talk.
Oh, I'm sure.
We're going to get a ton of content in the future. I'm excited for it. I want to end all of these, the Mentor's Mentor, with what are your big 3 takeaways, right? If you were sitting down, younger you, or ironically, I did this with Stefan too, because Stefan has girls, you have girls. If you had a son or looking at younger you, and he's like, crap, I got this giant life ahead of me, what do I do? And you had 3 things to tell him, what would you tell that little person?
How old is he?
Old enough to understand what the hell you're talking about.
Man, that's hard because as you just said, I have a lot of things that I could talk about, and as do you. And to narrow it down to 3 things is very hard. But number 1, don't ever put anything before yourself, right? I'm a true believer that you can't give your all to something or somebody unless you can give it to yourself first. Same thing in a relationship, right? If you don't love yourself, you can't love somebody else, right? Yep. So that's my thing is, don't ever put anybody before you put yourself, right? Like yourself should always come first. The more you take care of yourself, and again, it's something I'm relearning, right? The more you put into yourself, the more happy you're gonna be, the more genuine you're gonna be, and the more you're gonna be able to help others, yep. Right? So that'd probably be number 1. Number 2 would probably be do what you love. Don't worry about money. I'm a true believer that money is important, right? I think that it solves problems, right? However, it creates a lot of problems as well, right? So I think that if you do something that you love with your full intent, the money is going to come regardless. I think that you could, if you have a passion about something, you can make a living doing it. I'm not saying you're gonna be a millionaire, but you can make a living doing anything. And I've worked jobs before that you're doing and you don't like doing it, but you're doing it because it pays the bills, and you do nothing but hate it, and it just throws off your entire morale, right? Yep. You're miserable all the time, you're not happy, or you're not a person that people want to be around, etc. Right? Yep. So that would be number 2 is do what you love, what makes you happy, the rest will come, right? The third would probably be never get too far ahead of yourself. Always plan for what's next, right? Because I've seen too many people do it in every industry. And again, from friendships to relationships to businesses, right? Where they don't think about what's after this, right? Yeah. And you have to be prepared for everything. You have to know how to handle different situations. And even if those situations never arise, if you've ran yourself through those different scenarios, if something does arise, you're always going to be able to overcome it. If it blindsides you, that's when people panic, and that's typically when you get hit like a shit ton of bricks, In this industry especially, I see a lot of people who start succeeding. They start, for instance, let's say you're an in-person trainer, and I saw this in the corporate world a lot. I've seen it in this world a lot, right? People start doing good, right? And they get confident. And oh my God, like this is the most money I've ever made. This is the most clients I've ever had, whatever. But they're not forecasting for the future. And what happens, right? They have 1 client fall off, 3 clients fall off. And now all of a sudden they have 8 to 10 grand of revenue in 2-3 months turns to, I'm only making 4 grand. But they just bought a house, they just bought a car because they think they're making this money, right? And I think that's the thing is people, they don't look far enough into the future. And again, it's just not business. It's with friendships and relationships. And it typically sets them up for failure, right? There should always be a plan for what's next, And I've always been good about setting those plans. I might have been hesitant to actually get my feet wet with some of them, and now it's something that I'm trying to do, right? But at least I knew, okay, if I ever am going to do that, how am I going to approach it? What's going to be next? Getting yourself to take that step's a whole other conversation, right? Yeah. But at least running yourself through those scenarios so you could always prepare for the next thing,
Interesting. Man, I wish I had someone tell me that when I first started this, because
I wish I had someone tell me that, Yeah. But again,
that's why I'm doing this stuff like that, sure. So we can get that message out there, so that way, when they're in the position like us, years when, and they have nobody telling them, they can go listen to this, pull this, and be like, oh, I'm going through that right now.
I think that's great. That's one of the reasons why you're doing it, right? And again, the only reason why I can give that advice is not because someone else gave it to me. It's because it's all things that I learned from personal experience, from trial and error, Like, not to bark up my own tree, but again, I'd like to say that I've built a good brand for myself to an extent. I don't want to say brand because there's people, millions of followers, right? Yeah. I've built a good reputation, let's say, in the area, right? I've built a good business where I can provide for my family doing things that I love, right? Yeah. However, there are many, many crashes and burns that people didn't see behind the scenes, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't always just, hey, like Greg shows up, trains his clients, go home, life's successful, right? Like there was there was emotional stress, there was trouble with relationships, there was financial stress. There's a ton that goes on that people don't see before the actual success happens, you know? And again, like, that's something that everyone's going to go through to some extent, right? And you learn from it and you grow from it. However, if you could have someone tell you these things ahead of time, it's going to at least put a little bit of a damper on the hit that you actually take in those scenarios.
I 100% agree. So as we finish up here, Greg, thank you so much for this. Has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you, man.
Where can people find you?
Instagram's my big thing. I have a website, gblfitness.com. Probably has to be updated, so let me know if so. Otherwise, find me on Instagram. Handle is GVL_fitness.
Awesome. Good deal. And then, like every other episode, my handle are JP Motivation 777, 3 sevens, not a lot of them. And then Joe Buttice 3 on Instagram. That is, I think, the only one that I have for that. Thank you so much, guys. Let me know what else you guys would like to see here. If you guys want me to collaborate with anyone, always love the feedback. Don't forget to join the JP Motivation Facebook group. And thank you so much. Stay positive, stay motivated, stay uncrowned.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.